Hello, we'd like to welcome Herman Bowles as our next speaker. Herman has had a distinguished career. We'll refer you to the materials for a full bio, but let me just introduce him as Vice Chair of the Americas for JLL, a leading international commercial real estate company. Herman has graduated from West Point with a bachelor's degree in economics, has a Harvard MBA, and currently serves on a number of boards, including USAA, Comfort Systems, and a host of other both for-profit and nonprofit entities. Herman, welcome. And let's start today's topic about future of the workforce. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and if you would be so kind as to respond. First of all, what are the key issues that you see in the boardroom now and going into 2021 about the effects of the pandemic and COVID, some of the recent civil unrest that we've had? Tell us your perspective.
Well, Bob, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. It's quite a privilege. And when I got your invitation, I can tell you I was very, very excited. And it's unfortunate we're not doing this in person because I understand this is normally a ski outing. And I'll look forward, hopefully, to participating in the future. But thank you very much again for having me here today. And, you asked the question in terms of, kind of what are some of the things that I'm seeing in the boardroom. And you hit on both of them. There are two things, I'll call them pandemics, that we're facing now. And one obviously is COVID, which I'm very, very optimistic that we're going to have a breakthrough. And one of the things that I think it's important as we think of this other pandemic, which is obviously the racism pandemic that's going on, lots of activity going on in boardrooms all around the nation. And we'll talk a little further, but I'm in an organization called the Executive Leadership Council, which is made up of the most senior African-American executives in America. And I tell you, probably 30 of my colleagues have been invited to boards over the last 2 to 3 months. So there's activity going on. So let's start with the COVID in terms of what's going on. As we think about our role as a board member, we look at in that traditional role of being, hey, we are here for the shareholders. And that certainly is our duty of care is there. And we certainly look after the shareholders. However, you really in this time of day need to take a broader view. And as you know, the stakeholder view, as we're talking about, in addition to the shareholders, we're talking about what the employees, we're talking about the suppliers, we're talking about the communities in which we operate, okay? And thinking of that in terms of COVID, every board that I'm on, we got together right away. And the first thing we said is, how do we provide our service and our product while taking care of our employees, making sure that they're safe? For example, at USAA, we did everything from within 72 hours. We had this 32,000 member workforce basically working remotely. So that means your agility is important, okay? You've got to be able to make quick decisions. The employees remember what you do in times of crises. If we think about what's going on in America right now, between 2035 and 2040, the majority of people in America are going to be people of color. Now let's think about that from our boardroom perch. As we think about that, there's always a war for talent, as we know right now, and that war for talent will continue. And we need to make sure that from both a gender as well as diversity perspective, we have the opportunity to go after the best talent we can get for our organization. And then another fact on that, Bob, is this whole thing about our markets. What products are we going to sell and who are we going to sell them to? So without having that diverse perspective in the boardroom, being able to ask the appropriate questions to get the appropriate perspective that we need, we're not going to be as successful. So diverse organizations, diverse teams make the best decisions.
Well, Herman, thank you for that thoughtful answer. And I think you've actually answered my second question, but if you'd like to elaborate further, please feel free. These days, especially among public company boards, the topic of ESG, or environmental, social, and governance issues, is front and center. And of course, the S part of that deals with stakeholder issues, but it also deals with the social issues involving our organizations. And you mentioned the fact that diversity has become increasingly important in our boardroom. Any other thoughts on that before I turn topics on you?
Yeah, well, the importance is there for the reasons, from the market reasons that I said. And here's an interesting statistic to think of. In the United States right now, these are government statistics, the typical Black person makes 60% of what a white person makes. Okay, and that's 40%, big difference. But here's the most appalling statistic of all those. The typical Black person has a net worth 10% of that of the typical white person.
Wow.
And you sit back and you think, why did these things occur? And the first slaves were brought to this country in 1641. We went through the Civil War. We went through Reconstruction. We had the Jim Crow laws, okay? And people don't understand what those laws are. For example, it was against the law in Georgia for a white kid and a Black kid to play in a pool together. It was against the law for a white nurse to be on a ward where there was a Black male. I mean, these were laws. And we know the poll tax and the literacy exams that it took the vote. And so these were systematic racism issues that existed, which really continued up through 1965 with the Civil Rights Act, if we think about it, okay? So everything from redlining, and we know probably the majority of us in this event right now, a significant amount of our net worth is where? In our homes, in our real estate. And with redlining, even the VA was discriminatory after the wars. Blacks were not able to take part in those wealth building opportunities. So how many of us have used the equity in our home to send our kids to college, to make sure our kids can get piano lessons? And these are things that just did not occur. And what is the remedy for that? Quotas, probably not the remedy for it, but ensuring that there is an affirmative action taken by individuals and institutions to make sure that we build a society, build a company, build an organization which can take the best from every person. And look, in the boardroom, this is what I often say. It's very important that we create an environment where people can come to work and be their authentic self. And this latest uproar we've had, it hasn't just been Blacks, okay? It's been a very broad-based reaction. Particularly, I'm talking about the George Floyd reaction. It has not just been Americans. It has been worldwide. If we look at this as a moral issue, as we have been for the last 300 plus years, I don't think we're going to get very far, because everybody goes to church on Sunday, you feel whatever, you come back on Monday and we've had whatever is happening. But I think the key is, as I said earlier, to make this a business imperative and an economic issue. And I think when those two collide or reinforce one another, we're going to have a way. And look at what we've done in terms of women and gender diversity on boards. We've done a tremendous job. We've got a lot more work to do. And I do definitely think that we've made phenomenal progress. And the boards that I'm on, I was on a couple of boards that were all male, and we brought women onto the board. I'm going to tell you, it changes the locker room talk. It changes the perspective, and it makes you more focused on the issues that matter.
Thank you. And I'll applaud that from here, as I'm sure members of our audience will as well. Finally, Herman, I'd like to ask you this, and I can think of nobody better to ask. You're with a large commercial real estate company, and obviously you advise a lot of senior executives from business. Tell us what you see in the future in terms of commercial real estate as it relates to the change in workplace environments as a result of the pandemic.
COVID is certainly causing us all to look at the urban versus the suburban, right? New York City, suburbs, houses are going like hotcakes right now because people are being concerned as you look at the urban area, particularly with vertical transportation, i.e. elevators. You've got to get into them, right? What do they tell us to do? Stay as much distance as you can, wear your mask, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're in a suburban area, you're going to run into less people And there is a, debate still going on whether this core center city activity will come back. But I do think that will come back when we get a cure or for the virus. That will happen. Then the next thing we have, which really, Bob, many people are wondering about, is this work from home phenomenon. Okay, so prior to the pandemic, there was probably a 5 to 7% work from home. And, it went up to as high as 90% work from home. And somehow the economy has continued to rise and function. And the issue is, where is the medium going to be when this is all over? So the positives of work from home are that, think of the greenhouse gas effect, right? People aren't commuting as much. So therefore you don't have as much pollution. The downtime, that wasted time, particularly in major metro areas where people are caught in traffic, that is going away. The fact that the next one is kind of a double edge. The fact that you're able to spend more time with your family. All the surveys that we're taking, people are really enjoying being home, but people want to get away from home to get back into that environment that I call peanut butter and jelly, when you get your colleagues together and you get that innovation and those creative juices going. So we love our kids, but we don't want to be on our kids, and this is the research, 24/7. So the break, the old saying, distance makes the heart grow fonder, okay? So I think that is coming out in that. So with that, the work from home on the one hand means that you need less real estate. However, as you go back to work with social distancing, where we worked over the last decade to get it down to where on a large corporation, we can get down to 100, 125 square feet per person, I think that number is going to grow, right? Because we need to do things to make sure that people feel comfortable. Remember, we talked about those stakeholders. Your employees are one of those stakeholders, and you've got to make sure that they feel very, very, very comfortable. And then another thing, Bob, that's going to happen is going to be space design, okay? We're going to design spaces in such a way that people will have more distances, okay? And it's funny thinking about, Bob, particularly you and I were some of the same age. For us, it was a big deal for us to grow up and we get our office, and that was part of the status symbol. I'm gonna tell you, these younger generations, they don't really care about that. They actually like being together. So a lot of the spaces that we were making before this were really communal type spaces where people could collaborate and get along. So to sum it up, I would say that a lot of our clients say that they will have significantly less space, about 26% of them, okay? The vast majority of them say in the end, it probably won't have much impact on how much space we have. And about 20% of them say that they're going to continue to need more space. But I think obviously this is going to be a long term. And for those who are bettors, what did you say? You buy straw hats in the wintertime. Yeah, so if you're feeling bullish, no pun intended on this, and I do think we're going to get through this, and that natural tendency for people to want to be together is going to influence, I think, people wanting to get back to the office. However, the new normal will very well be what our surveys are telling us. People want optionality. So they want a couple of days to work in the office, and then they want that optionality to work from home or from another location.
Great. Well, we know that many of our viewers are wrestling with these issues in terms of workspace. Obviously, the pandemic has involved all of us to some extent or another, and meant disruptions both in our professional and personal lives. Herman, we want to thank you for being with us today and sharing your insights. We know that our audience will gain a lot from your perspectives. And next year, we plan to be back in Deer Valley live, and hope to see you there. So thanks very much, and happy holidays.
Thanks to you and your team, and best of all to you and everybody. Be safe.